An immigrant journalist in Georgia faces imminent deportation in a case his lawyers and advocates say violate his First Amendment rights. Now, Scripps News correspondent Katia Tubman joins us live from New York with the latest on this. So, Katia, I know you've been tracking this man's case. Where does it stand today?
That's right, Maritza. Mario Guevara is a Hispanic journalist based in Atlanta, but he is originally from El Salvador and has been detained by ICE for more than 100 days as of this week. Now, we reported on his case last month as lawyers urged a federal judge to immediately release Guevara. But now that release looks further out of reach as he now faces what they're saying is imminent deportation. Now, we spoke with one of his lawyers who's arguing the government is retaliating against Guevara for reporting on ICE activity in Georgia and violating his First Amendment rights. Here's what ACLU senior staff attorney Vera Edelman told us about this case.
I think it's about what the government can do when it hears, sees, reacts to reporting that it doesn't like, reporting that is purely shedding a light on what the government is doing. And I think that it is part of the general effort by this administration to use the full weight of the government and things beyond the weight of the government to impose ideological conformity and to make people afraid to talk about the government, to express views that the government doesn't like.
Federal prosecutors are arguing that Guevara was placed in deportation proceedings because of his immigration status and not his reporting on ICE, but free speech advocates say that isn't true. We spoke with Nora Benavides, who is senior counsel at Free Press, and she says she's been advocating for Guevara's case. Here's why that is.
There's no other case like this right now. Mario is the only journalist in the United States jailed for his reporting. This is so antithetical to the way the U.S. was founded, to the way that the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment were created. This is exactly the situation the First Amendment intended and was written to protect against. And there really are no other cases like this. But I worry that Mario may not be the last.
Now, Guevara confronted the reality of this potential deportation in a handwritten letter shared by the ACLU, where he talked about this deportation, saying, "I know I am about to be deported from this country, a country I have loved and respected for more than 2 decades. Life is not always fair. If I am deported, I will leave with my head held high because I'm convinced it will be for doing my work as a journalist and not for committing crimes." As of earlier today, press freedom groups actually filed an amicus brief in support of Guevara, and his lawyers are currently seeking a temporary restraining order to prevent what they fear is a fast-track deportation. Maritza?
Katia, I know you've followed so many of these immigration stories. You're in New York, and you've been covering ICE arrests at the Federal Immigration Building there, where we saw that video, or the photos from that video just a few minutes ago. So what more are you hearing about that incident involving an ICE officer and the family of a detainee in that really disturbing video?
That's right. The video is troubling. The incident is troubling, and it has intensified calls for ICE operations to stop happening in that building. Now, I've reported from that building, 26 Federal Plaza, where I've stood across from ICE agents who were staking out hallways, standing outside the doors of courtrooms, immigration courtrooms, waiting to arrest and detain people who were coming out of court, sometimes without any sort of explanation. And the arrests have been so many in these types of hallways that New York City has become the epicenter of ICE courthouse arrests across the country. We heard from, in response to that altercation, specifically from New York Congressman Dan Goldman, saying that this was just another example of the excessive violence that we've seen in these hallways at 26 Federal Plaza. And we also heard from the DH Assistant Secretary saying in a statement that the officer's conduct was unacceptable, and then saying that, of course, there will be an investigation launched, and right now we know, as you mentioned, that he is currently relieved of duties, but definitely this is stoking the fire for calls to stop these operations from going forward. Maritza?
Yeah, I know you'll continue to follow that for us, and we thank you so much. Scripps News national correspondent Katia Tubman, live in New York.